So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the work session meeting for City of Minnetrista, June 20th, 2022. Present are myself, Lisa Whalen, City Mayor, and Council President Pam Mortensen, John Chamberlain, and McGregor, Kathleen Refkin. We also have staff present. City Engineer with WSB is Allison Fauski. We have Director of Administration, Ali Palfus, Director of Public Works, Gary Peters. Don Motzko is our City Clerk behind Mr. Peters. And then we have staff to my right, Jasper Krugel is City Administrator, Brian Grimm, Finance Director, David Abel, Community Development Director, and Chief of Police, Paul Falls. With that, we have four discussion items. What we're going to do is we're going to start out with item 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to work our way down. If we get to like 4 or 5 and we run out of time, we will add those to our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. So with that, is that David? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We're looking for how the council would like to proceed with various violations of the conditional use permit that is occurring at the property located at 6605 Wood Edge Road. As you'll recall, at your February 7th, 2022 work session, there was consensus of the council that the property owner had until the end of June of 2022 to have the accessory building built. That was a condition as outlined in the original conditional use permit. To date, there is no accessory building that has been constructed, and we have not received a building permit application for one either. As listed in your staff report, there is a general timeline as to what has occurred with regards to correspondence between city staff and the property owner that dates back to January 3rd of this year. And if you scroll down, the most recent correspondence being on June 15th, there's an email with a letter that's also included in your packet from the property owners with an update from them on the building progress and where they're at. With that, they have requested additional time, as you probably saw in the letter, for the reasons that they have listed there. So that again is the general timeline and the most recent correspondence that we have gotten from the property owner. Again, like I said, what we're looking for from council is direction as to whether or not you are looking to accommodate additional time, or as we talked about at the February 7th work session, the other option would be to go ahead and start the process of revoking that conditional use permit. Again, we're looking for direction from council on one way or the other with that. If that's the direction, we would start that process in terms of notification and bringing that back to a future meeting for actual adoption of the revoking of that conditional use permit. So I can stand for any questions. I see the property owners are in the audience as well this evening if you have any questions for them as well.
Thank you. Council, questions of staff, comments?
Was the survey that was brought, was that a professional firm survey?
Yeah, there was a survey on file, but I don't know if you're referring to the wetland delineation.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. That was a wetland delineator, a professional wetland delineator that did that. Yep.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
Okay. David, in the correspondence with Mr. Whittick and Nick, does Nick feel that the delays that have taken place were warranted and couldn't be helped?
Can you say that one more time, please?
Okay, sure. Sorry, can you hear me? Nick communicated with Mr. Whittick, and does Nick feel that the delays that took place are not Mr. Whittick's fault and that, in good faith, he needs more time?
That's a tough one. I mean, we weren't privy, of course, to all the discussions that they were having with the wetland delineators and how exactly that went. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know. So as best, I mean, I guess follow the timeline is, best
Okay,
I
I read the timeline like 2 or 3 times. So, okay. But it was an accomplished task. The delineation's done. Paid for, done. Okay. So now the next step is the building.
building permit application. Yep.
Okay. And it hasn't been accomplished yet.
Correct.
Do we know why?
No.
Mr. Wittig, do we know why?
Yes, I'll speak because it goes from here, it goes to Gronberg. We were told Gronberg hasn't done their part. They have to determine where the building can be. We can't get a permit until that happens. We can't even get builders until that happens.
Okay.
We're in the process of waiting for them to get
And
their
as-
stuff done.
And as you see, we got this report on the 9th. The next day I did this letter. We were waiting to get this report, the delineation. And then I did the letter. So this wasn't received until the 9th.
Okay.
And have you heard back? Is it Gronberg or Gronfeld?
No, we haven't heard back.
Is it? I'm not
It's
sure.
Gronberg. They're a
They are sending copies from their office to Grunberg, and they're going to do the process, and whatever that process is.
So you don't have any date from the Gronbergs yet?
Beg your pardon?
You have no date from from Gronberg? I don't believe that.
No,
That's hard to believe.
no.
And they've had your application. So
Yeah.
since
So
when?
I've been contacted them. They came up with the first one, and they did all the paperwork and came up with the building on there. And then the wetland people said, no, I guess you guys did, or Nick did, that we have the potential wetland behind the property. So then everything came to a stop. And now we've been waiting for them to get the wetland done, and then they're taking the information and giving it to Gronberg, and then Gronberg can come up with.
But Gronberg has that information now.
Yes, they have all the information.
And they've had it since when?
We're just, last week.
Okay.
So we're just patiently waiting for them to do their stuff. We did our part. We've got contractors lined up. We have.
Okay, you have a contractor lined up?
What?
You have a contractor lined up?
We have 3 of them that we're working with. We're trying to figure out which one. We have the.
So you don't have a contractor lined up?
Well, with all due respect.
I'm just,
we
you have
couldn't
3.
do a commitment until we know what you guys have to say because of our delay. You know, we can't
Okay.
say,
We can't sign
we can't
contracts.
sign,
yet.
we
got-
couldn't sign
got-
contracts.
Okay, I understand. However, you say you have a contractor lined up,
We
and
have-
then you say you have 3 contractors.
No, we have 3 contractors lined up. We're choosing between 3 of them. We have the bank loan secure, that's all done. We're just waiting this process to get done. When Gromberg gets his stuff done, then we can take it to the next level. But we're just sitting here on our hands, we're just waiting for them. It's out of our hands at this point.
Okay, so you have a bank loan approved? Do you have a
Yes, it's
letter?
already been
Okay,
taken care of.
do you have a letter of approval from your bank?
We-
Can you
we
provide
already
that?
got the money from it. It's already sitting in the bank.
well, it's not about, we just refined that property.
Yeah, we just refined it.
And so it's
We got
just
a bunch
in
of-
the bank. I don't know what you mean about. it's-
Generally when you apply for a loan,
Yes.
you have to go through a process to be approved, and then once you're approved, you get a letter stating that you've been approved for the loan. And then, okay, just hold on a second. And then generally, they tell you, okay, you've been approved for this loan. When do you want to close? So you say you've already closed on the loan.
Yes.
We're already closed
Okay. Right. And when did you close?
last week.
Okay.
6/10.
Okay.
Quick question. If you have 3 contractors that you haven't decided yet, how did you know how much money you needed for the loan?
We took out as much as we could.
To be ready.
Yeah, so we didn't know.
Okay.
We're trying to be proactive in other words. We're trying to be ahead of the curve because it's hard to be pestering these people to get their work done. We need this stuff. I don't want to beg these people. And that's what I'm having to do. Begging, but I gotta have this stuff. And we're just running into brick walls because they're struggling so bad.
And what is Gronberg supposed to do for you?
They're gonna do their job and see.
What's their job? That's what I'm asking. What is their job? What is their part?
Their job is to see how much hard ground we have how much sand we have or how much buildings we have. You approve where the building can go, what's the border between, how close we get to the wetlands, how far back from the property line, where can we put the building, and then we have to submit that to you guys, so that you guys can go, yeah, it looks good.
So they're doing this survey. They're doing the survey, is what you're saying.
But basically, where it can be placed.
Right. Right.
In summary.
Okay.
And you've received confirmation from them that they got your wetland setback information? Did you get an email back from them, a letter, something confirming?
From Gronberg?
Yeah, that they got the information you sent them?
No, I haven't received anything.
No, but
We're waiting for the water people to get done with their stuff.
You said that you said that that's already been sent to Gronberg.
By my understanding, because we got this,
Yeah.
they told us as soon as they got done with this, they were going to forward it over to them.
they
And that was last
said
week.
they would do it. It wasn't up to us. But we can confirm that actually happened, but when we're told we were gonna do it, we just trusted them.
So you knew you were on under a deadline. I'm a little bit perplexed why you wouldn't have confirmed with Gronberg that they'd received the information they
Because
needed.
I just talked to them the week before, and I said, you're going to be getting a letter from these people. Did you receive it all yet? And they said, no, we haven't received it. And then they told me, the water people, that, no, we'll get that taken care of. You know who to send it to? Oh, yeah, we deal with him all the time. It's not a big deal. We got their address and everything. It's not an issue.
But you didn't call anyone today to confirm they sent it or they got it?
I never did that.
Okay.
If both parties say they're gonna do it, we trusted it. And the thing is, you guys don't understand how busy he is with boats. Maybe you don't, I don't know. He works 14-hour days. He doesn't have time to be on the phone all day. I have a whole other company I run, and so when we have two parties say that they're gonna do it, we trust them.
How many boats or vehicles, how many boats do you have currently sitting on your property?
I'm not sure. Some of them are in transit.
How many boats do you currently have sitting on your property?
I may have 15.
Okay. And you're well aware that 12 is the max?
Yes.
Okay. Council?
Why do you have more than the max when you're aware of what the max is?
They're in transit going to the lake, so I take them out of storage, I clean them up, and then I take them right to the lake, and then I get rid of the barrel.
Right, but you're allowed 12 and you have more. Why are you not following the rules?
I think it's because you call people and they say they're gonna pick it up, and they don't. We know how people work, and they're busy too. So I think that is kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, but we're calling them, and, once again, now I'm begging for them to pick up the boat. Some people come right away, and it's amazing how quick they come. And the other people, they, oh, is it okay if I come on Tuesday? And it's like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. I just had another couple just drop off a boat. I gotta have this thing out of here. And, I'm begging with the customers to come pick it up.
Okay, but the main point at the moment, is getting this warehouse built. That's the main point.
By June 30th.
It's not going to happen by June 30th.
Right.
That was
So-
the date we all talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to take the fence out of the mix here just so that I understand. The fence was never an issue, right? This cup was only for a
CUP was.
building, correct?
Correct.
So what did the fence have to do with this whole thing? It looks like we spent a couple of months on the fence going back and forth.
Well, I was in the process of putting up the fence, and then I decided, well, I wasn't sure if I wanted to afterwards. I know I still had time to put the fence up, and I got busy, and it's just something that got delayed.
So is the fence something still that you're going to do after?
The lumber is sitting there. just have to take the time, and it's not maybe so hot, and put it up.
And I see that originally there was some discussion on a very large structure. Obviously you can build a large structure, but I think you understand again, it's only to house 12 boats.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I get that.
David, you've dealt with Gronbergs before. Any idea generally how long they take?
As of lately, they're all busy.
Yeah.
Surveyors are, like anything
Right.
else. So things have been slower.
And then, obviously, they weren't able to do a wetland delineation until vegetation was out, right? So
Correct.
it would have probably been April, May sometime.
Correct.
Okay. So I think at this point, this is what I'm going to recommend. One, we need a letter from Gronbergs stating that they have received the information and that they will be providing a site plan, that you're paid up and so on. They should be able to provide that letter to the city within a few days, okay?
Give a date, please.
No later than the 30th. That's 10 days from today. Okay, so you have tomorrow to call them and ask them to provide the city with an email or a letter stating that, yes, they've received the information regarding the wetland delineation, and yes, they have your payment for a site plan. That's basically what they're going to be doing. Then, and they need to provide that letter and along with an approximate date as to when they will have a site plan ready for the city, okay? I don't think that's too much to ask. Then I think that prior to our July 18th meeting, you need to provide the city with plans for a new building. July 18th is our next meeting, and if we don't see these plans, I mean, we're talking another month. Gronberg is going to be able to give us a date as to when they can have a site plan. And you should, and since you have contractors already lined up, you should be able to get a building lined up.
That shouldn't be a problem.
All right. So July 18th, we're going to come back here, and we're going to hope that things are moving along.
So, and
David.
just to clarify, when you say plans submitted to the city, is that something you want brought to the 18th meeting, or do you want him to go ahead and apply for a building permit?
Apply for the building
Okay,
permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just have it submitted by the 18th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
I think that's fair. You don't have to have it built because we understand issues with timing and contractors, but at least and then with that, when your contractor submits the building permit, we'd like to get a time frame in terms of, and if the contractor would also specify on the building permit approximate date for starting the construction.
Starting and how ending, how long it takes once they start.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too long, but yeah. I mean, this is a pole building, I'm assuming. Yeah. And it shouldn't be too difficult to put together plans for a pole building. So, all right. Council, are we
We're fine.
okay? Staff?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're talking about special assessments.
Yes. Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you. Per the discussion we had at June 6th, where it's been requested to kind of go over our special assessment policy, talk about what other communities do, and just have a conversation about special assessments in Minnetrista. So I attached the special assessment policy. It's 22 pages long. Really, I think...
I'm sorry, Jasper.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to, after this, what just happened here, I'd like to have a letter stating everything that Lisa said to him, with every date and everything that he has to come back to on the 18th. And I don't know how you get a signature saying he got that letter, but I want that letter in our hands, because I will not. He has totally tried our patience, and I think we have been, as a city, more than generous in this whole building process.
We can send, we've tried certified letters, and believe it or not, that doesn't work. So the best we can do,
We believe it.
the best we can do is, we've even sent a CSO out there to have them sign something, and that didn't work either. So anyway, we will track via email like we always have. We save all these emails, and that's our best course of action, which I will send first. I'll send one tonight or first thing tomorrow morning to both of their email addresses. So.
Do you know someone at Grunberg?
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I'll
Can you call
I'll
and
talk to
find
them
out?
tomorrow. Absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah. They're yep.
That's why. I mean, Gronberg is well known, and
Well, that's not what it says in
I'm
the
sh-
letter. She called it somewhere else. I don't know these places.
I mean, you would think that they would have followed up and made sure that they got it. Oh, okay. Never mind. All right.
Sorry.
No, good point. Thank you. Okay.
All right, no worries. So special assessment policy, you have a 22-page special assessment policy. Really, I think the area that gets focused, and I think what we're going to talk about today, unless there's some other areas that we'd like to talk about, is just the area, I believe it's on page 8, talking about the assessable cost. And I'll just read that. The assessable cost equals 50% of reconstructing a rural and or urban street, road, and 100% of overlaying a rural gravel street, road, and 100% of milling and overlaying an urban street. Street road improvements shall be assessed consistent with the street road improvement method. So, a lot of I guess slashes in there, but so that's what we have in our policy. I believe the practice has been we don't assess anything with mill and overlays. We have the option to, according to our policy. We can do whatever we want, frankly. So we have a policy, basically 50% for roads that are being reconstructed, 100% if it's going from gravel to urban section, or even pavement, not urban.
I thought we changed this though because we've never assessed for mill and overlays, and I thought when we revisited this, we made that correction.
I
thought we did because we've never assessed for mill and overlays.
I don't think we officially
Oh, okay.
changed it from my recollection, but I guess.
and I think everybody is aware.
Okay.
City council holds the ultimate authority. They
Right.
can literally do whatever you want for whatever project you want. The assessment policy is just kind of a communication tool to guide the engineers when they're doing the 429 process and communicate that with the public. So. I think everybody's aware that there have been modifications to this from time to time with projects. So, looking at this and kind of specifically focused on the projects that we are moving forward with for 2023, there's 2 areas that have assessment potential. That's the Morning View, East View, Westwood area, and then the North Arm area. So, Allison, city engineer, put together some numbers as far as what those assessments would be if we follow the policy. So the Morning View, East View, Westwood area, those assessments would be $24,547, and that's for 50%. And then the North Arm area would be just under $14,000. So one of those kind of falls within the range of, I think, what we've done in the past. One of them is a little higher than what we've done in the past. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, we had some one project that was like 19,000 or 20,000.
Yeah.
We never
it had a
assessed
water-
that much.
It had a water share portion to it, yeah.
For road though, not for just road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for just road.
Okay. So that's a determination too. You know, the Morning View area, they're replacing the water main. It's not new water main, so that's one piece. So that'd be in that total project cost. The 24,000 includes the water portion of it. Doesn't.
No.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay. Thank
No,
you.
that's just straight.
So it doesn't. So that's just straight
That's
street.
just
So
straight.
thanks, Allison, for that clarification. So looking at those numbers are out there, right? People can do the math on this. So we're kind of just looking at what we have right now, what other cities use. I've thrown out a couple different options that I think might be viable here. You have options, right? You can look at each project individually, like you've been doing, and kind of making adjustments how you feel fit, right? That's kind of, I think, the status quo. One other area that we have is setting a special assessment cap based on project and property type. So, pairing up the project type and the type of property, if it's urbanized or rural, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. But you could cap it. And I think, generally there's been kind of that going on just on a project-by-project basis. Another way that, and I threw some examples out there for like a full reconstruct project for street and utilities. So looking at removing that separate water portion and just kind of combining it all into one. And, this is something that I just threw together. It's not Minnetrista specific. It's just as an example of what you could see for an assessment policy like that. And then you'd adopt something like that, and then you'd make annual adjustments based on the construction cost index. So what are the construction costs going up? You make your adjustments and adopt that annually. And then the next one that we kind of talked about a little bit was a special benefit appraisal. So looking at the hiring an appraiser, doing a report, that $10,000 to $15,000 per project range. I want to be clear that goes down over time as if you use the same appraiser. They establish kind of a database for your community, and you got some comps already that they don't have to go out and find. So those can go down to $8,000 to $10,000 for each time. It's a small portion of the total project cost, but at the end of the day, what will end up coming out of that is the appraisers I found are fairly conservative. The benefit that they will find will be probably significantly lower than what we currently have, or even the previous numbers that I had where you cap it. But fully knowing that their job it's kind of risk management. They don't want us to have an appeal. That's kind of what you get that for. And they're saying, well, this is what we can justify quantitatively as the benefit. The benefit might be more, might be less, but that's what they feel confident that they can defend in court. So you're kind of buying an insurance policy, but at the end of the day, you'll likely see a 10 to 20% of the project cost, I think, in that range. So, we're at 50 right now. It'd go down to 10 to 20%, but you'd likely would never get an appeal, right? So, as you can imagine, it's kind of this balancing game. What's palatable to the community? What can you pass along to the property owners before there's an appeal and a potential dispute or lawsuit? Talking with the Kings Point Road folks, Gary and I kind of got some really good input. I sent a summary from them. So small data set, but from them.
Seven.
Very small.
Very small.
Yeah. So, but that was, it's good to get that kind of input, because they're the only groups that really have given me that kind of direct feedback on the assessment policy. But so there's options, right? You can keep it the same. I think there's an exercise similar to this that occurred maybe last year. Keep it the same, modify it, do a cap, do a special benefit appraisal. There's other methods. Yeah, I earlier shared what other communities do. It runs the gamut from no assessments to 100%. So it's all what's appropriate for the community, what you want to do, and how you want to approach it. One thing, and I don't know if this was clear because it's kind of hard to describe in writing, is that construction costs are going up faster than I think what the value increase is related to that construction cost. So you're seeing more separation, which is probably increasing the risk that we have at somebody appealing. So having a set percentage, that's one of the drawbacks to that model is when they're not correlating together and running in parallel, you likely are going to see some separation, and then you run that risk. So, and I think everybody is aware of that when you start seeing $25,000 or $30,000 assessments for projects. Trying to figure if that actually is the benefit that the property owner is receiving. That's up for debate, right? But it's higher than we've ever done before. So that's kind of the conversation that I think we want to have. I'll take any direction from council if there's other questions. If there's an appetite to change things, we can definitely modify the special assessment policy and bring something forward. But we're just looking for input from City Council.
Thank you.
Can we set the assessment based on home values, taxable home values?
No.
No, so
It's the benefit that they receive from the project itself. So, in other words, how much value is there to how much value is added to their property based on the project? Is
Right,
it,
but that goes up substantially based on the value of the home on the street.
no,
Agreed.
Yes,
No.
it does.
Agreed. I mean, if you have
Yeah.
you have a whole street of $1 million houses,
With a horrible road, they will benefit exponentially by a better road.
well, I think that would be a question that this report could then flesh out.
Yeah.
So
One of the things on the report, though, Justin Jasper even said, is they're going ultra conservative. You know, they're not
But
even
you
probably
can-
giving you a lot of times a good value on those.
but you can look at that too. But
But can we legally say our assessment policy is we will assess 1% of your home value or 50% of the project cost, whichever is less? Can we set that legally?
I mean, honestly, you can. I mean,
You
is
could.
it probably so? If you put it in those terms, really, what the appraiser does and what it legally says is you're supposed to look at what the bare land value is of the property and what the value increase of that bare land. Tying it to the home value, I think, is setting yourself up to have a dispute with the property owner. You can literally have it set up however you feel as a council. But having it tied to home value is kind of the opposite, I think, of what state statute says with it being bare land. It's a way of doing it, right? And I get what you're saying. And maybe there is a correlation between a big house, but at the end of the day, it's literally the land will always be there forever. The house may come and go, even if it's 100 years, right? So that's the way they look at it.
these special benefit appraisals is that just a regular appraisal company or is that a specialized industry?
It's a specialized
Specialized.
industry. There's 2 or 3 of them in Minnesota that do it, and that's it. So getting on their list early is important if you have project deadlines. So
If
So
you
what-
use,
go ahead.
if you used a company like that and we went with their recommendation, whatever it was, does that, and that's maybe a legal question, does that add more credence to
Oh, yeah.
an appeal?
It adds more.
Because you got a professional,
Yeah.
a third party that set the value.
yeah,
It would give us a lot more.
Right, okay.
it would. I kind of put it up to you're buying an insurance policy before the project.
And if they do it and then you go, well, this is really conservative, sure, the council could say, okay, so let's just say they say it's a $6,000 increased value, and the council says, well, we think 75. Could go higher if you wanted to. I mean, and would somebody balk at that at $1,500? Probably not. So depending on how conservative you think they are. But it is an insurance thing. So the problem is when somebody contests it, if they win their case, the city picks up their entire amount. Okay? So you can try and negotiate prior to them going to court, but if you don't come to terms and you go to court, they could end up not paying anything, and the city picks up the entire amount. Now that might not be a lot when it's just one individual, but if you set your assessments too high, and there's a whole neighborhood that says this is out of whack, this isn't fair, and they join together. So let's say there's 10 individuals, 10 property owners that appeal the assessment together, and they win. That means 10 of those assessments are set aside, and the city picks them up. Appeals have been won in the city, yes, but I don't know how often or how frequently, and not recently.
I was going to ask Brian, in your tenure here,
We've had one appeal.
We won an appeal.
right, Game Farm,
Yeah.
And why did we win? Because that's our policy and we held to this is what we do?
No, no.
I mean, I think we did actually with that one. After the fact, we did actually go get one of these appraisals.
Oh.
To me, it's like that's another way to do it. If you don't get challenged and no one appeals, it's game over. It's done. But if you get an appeal, you can still go and get one of these appraisals afterwards, and that's what we did in the case of Game Farm.
One other consideration, if I may, is if you have a project that you're going to sell a bond for. We talked a little bit about tax exempt bonds. In order to sell a tax exempt bond, we need to retain 20% of the project costs through assessments.
Yeah, they have
otherwise,
to be,
otherwise
right.
it's a taxable bond.
Right.
You pay a little premium on it,
Yeah.
so half a point or whatever.
So you have to
it
do
is.
a 20% minimum, right?
So you try to, and generally it kind of works out pretty close to that. A lot of assessment policies have that in mind, just to be able to do that. And that threshold's 20%. So,
And then you have to be careful too, because if you do just the minimum 20% and somebody does appeal it, then and you go below that 20%, you're kind of in trouble too. So for the Game Farm Road one, for instance, we did it 25%. I think it was 25%.
28,
Because we wanted to make sure that we met that 20% threshold. And that's the other thing is, it's hard to compare different communities because, and even different areas here in Minnetrista, because you have the North Arm with only 40-some houses and a long stretch, and then you have areas like Woodland Cove or Hunter's Crest. So it varies, but a lot of the communities that have smaller dollar amounts for assessments are the communities that have smaller lots too and more homes that they're assessing for a project.
And that seems to be more of a reason to leave the policy as it is because there's such a diverse amount. How do we change the policy now after we just assessed all the homes in Jennings Cove this year that paid 50%? That's, said, okay, $7,500, all right, fix our road. I mean, I understand that the community is incredibly diverse and the rural area versus the, more dense area. But those people who choose to live on North Arm are paying to be in the more rural part. They don't want neighbors on, quarter acres. This is one of the other aspects of that comes into play.
But
I'm not saying we assess them the full amount, but we leave the policy as it is and we address it on a case-by-case basis like we've done in the past. Because then at least if someone appeals it, we can go, this is our policy. This has been our policy on
doesn't matter what the
of-
policy is. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Like when a judge looks at it, you have a better chance of winning.
No, you don't.
How do you know that? You've had so many cases with this?
Well, I can tell you, the judge isn't going to say, well, what is your policy? The judge is going to say, what is the all you have to do
I
is...
can guarantee you the judge is going to ask what your policy is.
And, okay. I won't argue with you if that's what you
That's a
think.
legal question.
That's a legal question. Then maybe Allison knows. I don't know, but I think if you take it to court, the judge is going to look at the state statute. That's what the judge has
And
to
we are
look at.
complying with the state statute.
We are until somebody wins an appeal. But really, what they'll ask you is, did you follow your policy, and then did you follow state statute? I mean, that's what they'll ask, and
Right.
and then they'll go from there. And then really, it's a debate as what is the benefit, and then they'll come in with a appraiser. We'll come in with an appraiser, and
Okay, so let me throw some more on the fire. Burl Oaks would be paying as one unit.
No, it's based on each property they own, like the school district had to last year. So the school district had, 5 or 6 properties?
Yeah, it's fine.
And see, that's the other issue that we need to look at, because Burl Oaks is a 501c3, and I do know that they're a struggling entity. And if we hit them with, let's say, $15,000 assessments, that may just put them out of business. Seriously.
Okay, so that's one.
And that's something to consider. So we have to ask ourselves, do we want Burl Oaks to stay, or do we want to have them go? And they've asked the city and told the city in the past that they're struggling financially.
Okay, now there's another piece to this, though. The majority of the traffic on North Arm
Right.
is Burl Oaks.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I would expect them to pay more.
So those are all questions. What do you do?
My opinion is clearly stated. I think we leave it as it is and address it on a case-by-case basis, because however we change this, we're going to increase the levy to get the money the other way, and then you're just spreading this on people who don't necessarily ever use that road.
I agree with Kathleen.
I agree. So how did we arrive at a comfort level of $10,000? It's a number that keeps bouncing around in my head.
For what?
That was kind of a threshold we didn't want to go above in assessments.
Well,
Whether that was 50% or less. I mean, in my tenure here, that seems to be the number that, with the different assessments we've done in my 4+ years, that we didn't want to go above 10,000.
well, we've gone above 10,000. We did. We went above 10,000 when we did Game Farm Road, and that was a gravel to bituminous.
Yeah.
And then we went above 10,000 on Halstead, and again, that was a gravel converting it to bituminous. So those maybe were an anomaly or
Right.
exception.
They're 100% theoretic.
Right. But when you look at the assessments that we've done over the past several years, we've never gone above 10,000.
Right.
I think,
10,000.
yeah, it's been between 70 or 66. I think was
Oh man, yeah, it's probably 6,500.
65 to 9,600 or something. I think last year Loring and Stonebridge were the highest, and they were 9,600.
So now we have a economics 101 here as well, which we've all kind of touched on, is that costs are going up. Salaries are probably going up depending on your job, occupation. Other values are going up. So now the 10,000 is no longer 10,000. That's really, because of inflation, is 7,500. So now we need to consider saying, well, 15,000 is maybe our level.
Well, again, as Jasper was pointing out, the whole thing is the benefit to the property. And the costs of doing the projects are going up, but they're going up more than what the benefit is added to the property. So that's the conundrum we're in. But my question to you, and if you stick with it, let's say you stick with the 50% assessment, and now the reason we're having this conversation today is because we're going to have a neighborhood meeting, as we've had, and we're going to invite these people in, and when we tell them that they're going to be assessed nearly over $24,000 just to have their road go from a bad bituminous to a better bituminous, what do you think is going to happen, and how do you think they're going to react? How would you react? I guess that would be my question. How would you react if you were assessed? You had a street in front of your house, and now all of a sudden you're going to get a new street, but it's a $25,000 assessment. What are we going to say to these people?
That the costs are going up, that it's payable over 20 years, that this is what it costs to fix your road. And the alternative is your levy goes up substantially to pay for this as well. Like I said at the last meeting, either way, the residents are paying for this. It's just whether or not the small group that benefits from it is, or if the other 9,000 people in town are. I mean, people's home values have gone up $200,000. Everyone is getting raises. Everyone here got raises. The residents have to realize that the cost of doing the repairs on their roads is going to go up too. I'm not saying we assess the full $23,000 or whatever, but we can't just set a blanket, we're only going to charge 10.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I think one of the reasons we're having the discussion today is because we have to have an open house, invite people in, and we are going to have to tell them approximately what they might be looking at. And I don't think it's going to go over too well if we say you're going to be assessed $25,000. That's what I'm getting at.
So is $18,000 going to go over better?
No.
Is $10,000 going to go over better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so how much are we increasing the levy then to pay for the other $13,000 per resident?
Well, we have to increase the levy regardless because
I understand that, but if we're going to keep paying a higher percentage than 50%, we're going to have to pay that. We're going to have to increase the levy more than the $125 we're allocating every year. So now we start allocating $200,000 more every year?
Well, there might still be some projects that are still going to fall within that 50%. I mean, all of
How
our.
is that fair? Oh, you don't have to pay 50% because your project is $7,500, but because theirs is more, they only have to pay 40%. Well, why don't I have to pay 40%? I would rather only pay 6 instead of 7.
That's one of the reasons why staff was saying some communities actually just set a dollar amount rather than a percentage.
Right, but then we need to decide how much more we're going to do on the levy because they're going to pay for it that way in their taxes. And for a lot of people, that's going to be harder to swallow than for the 30 residents that are mad that they have to pay $18,000 to fix their road.
I'm going to tell you, anybody who's retired, and for Morning View, there are retired people there. They're not going to cope with 18 to 25. They're not going to cope with 15 to 25. They're not going to cope with that. It's just, they'd just as soon not have it done.
So they would rather have it on their levy.
Yeah, because it's going to be less.
Yeah.
It's going to be
It's kind of
substantially
out of
less.
sight there.
Right.
But so is this. If you don't pay it, it just gets added to your tax bill. We're not asking them to pay the $20,000 tomorrow. It's getting added to your tax bill just like your levy increase is added to your tax bill.
But at $25,000, you're talking about a $1,500 annual increase to your taxes. And for a lot of people that are, as Ann
Retired.
says, retired, that's a pretty substantial increase.
So then as a city, we want to increase the levy more and spread it out on more people who don't
Again-
benefit. That's the heart of the discussion. So if we're going to change the policy and set a target amount, then we need to have Brian redo the numbers for the budget because we need to increase the levy. Because the sooner we start adding to that now, the more prepared we are in the future because the road costs are just going to keep going up.
We need to find a less expensive way of doing it.
Dirt.
If I may, I mean that's kind of where we're at, right? And any special assessment policy change is hard to do because there's past precedent, there's levy implications. You know, if you reduce it, if you end up capturing more or less local money on the road, right? It just gets socialized amongst the community. Those are tough things to have conversations about because there's always a winner and there's always a loser, right? If anytime you change these things, so that's the heart. I think that's the heart of the challenge here, right? Is being able to decide on what you want to do, and really you can do anything you want. You know, we can provide guidance. I mean, any change is going to make somebody upset, right? Past people that we've already assessed, or you know, somebody that was assessed 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Have we ever gotten complaints from people that said we didn't assess 50% on Halstead or on Game Farm?
No, I just, the school district, I think, originally asked about, what, there was some questions what percent they got, and obviously we told them what they did, and they, we ended up at a compromise of 40% for the school district, so.
But I'm saying, but we've never had anybody call and say, hey, you only assessed 25% on Game Farm. Why are you assessing me 50%? Or you assessed me 50%, but you only assessed them 28%. I mean, we've never gotten those complaints.
Because I think they don't know.
Yeah, because they don't
Probably
know.
not, but
As
still.
we put out more press releases
Otherwise,
and more
I think
people
they
pay
would show
attention,
up.
people will start paying more
I
attention.
think they would show up if they knew.
So
Right?
if you had to pay, forget about percentage, if you had to pay $9,000 for your road, for an assessment, and your neighbor paid $7,500 for their road, wouldn't you be a little upset if you had to pay $9,000 and your neighbor had to pay $7,500?
Not if I knew how the policy was set up and how many people lived on that road and the condition of that road and everything that went into it. It depends on how educated and how much information you're giving the people that are complaining. You have a road with 100 homes on it and they only pay $5,000. You have a road with 10 homes on it, the same length. Yeah, they're going to have to pay more. How do you want to change the policy?
No, I'm not saying that we should change it. What I'm saying is I'm looking at these dollars, nearly $25,000, and I'm saying I don't think that'll stand up in court. I really don't. That's my opinion. Might be wrong, but I don't think that, and I think if we have an open house and people come in and we say you're going to be assessed $25,000, I recently was at a couple open houses here for graduations, and they were talking about their cities assessing them. And I said, so how much was your assessment? And they said, oh, 7,000. And I'm like, oh, that's not bad. I said, be happy. I said, we're looking at 15,000 for some of our assess. They were just like, there's no way. There's just no way.
Okay, so-
But that's just some people saying that.
Okay, so let me ask a couple questions then. My questions aren't meant to be critical, they're literally for information. Right. If legally the policy of 50% is not going to hold up in court when people appeal it, then the courts don't recognize the policy, right?
No, that's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but the courts are going to look at the dollar amount and the benefit that the property receives. They may say, well, did you follow your policy? And you say yes. They're still going to look at the dollar amount. And is that dollar, that's going to be the overriding determination.
Okay, so now I'm trying to piece this back. So taking that, going back to the appraiser piece.
Right.
If you have the appraiser piece is going to show whatever benefit there is.
Right.
And then the courts will recognize that.
Well, that's what Jasper was saying. It's an insurance policy. Basically, you're assured to a greater extent of being able to substantiate your assessment.
So if we had the appraiser, and the appraiser comes back with the 24,000 assessment, you believe that the courts would acknowledge that, and the appeal would lose.
No, I think if it came back and it said, yeah, you're going to see a $25,000 benefit from this, I think then the city would have something to hang its hat on.
Okay, then isn't that our answer?
It's just a matter if you want to do the upfront cost of the
Right.
15 to 20,000 for the appraisal.
I
10 to
thought it was
15,
maybe
yeah.
8 to 10.
Or,
It's
No,
10
it's-
to
or
15.
10
And we just added into the
Yeah,
construction
yeah.
costs anyway, so
Yeah,
it gets
I'm
spread
with
out.
him. Yeah, I'm with him. Just add the 10 to 15 into the construction costs and do that, because there's,
And like I said, if they come back and we feel it's too conservative, you can add more to it. Be careful.
But wouldn't they appeal it automatically then? If they're going to know we did this.
Yeah, the hard part is once you set the floor, if the appraisal comes back at 7,000, we're pretty
Yeah,
darn
you're
close to
stuck
locked in at
with what it is.
7,000.
Because who
It
wouldn't
is- yeah,
appeal that?
yeah, that's the
Oh, look,
hard
they got
part.
an appraisal.
Because it costs money to appeal.
I mean, yeah, you have a little wiggle room, I
Yeah.
suppose, probably.
Even- That's what I'm saying. You don't have a lot, but
we're
you
not trying to hurt the residents, though, and
No.
take their appeal away from them. We're not trying to do that.
Right. But
Okay.
is doing the $10,000 to $15,000 appraisal per project just throwing money away?
Well, not per project. I mean, these are big projects, and maybe we make. Well, I don't know whether we're going to make decisions on each project, but these are big projects, so we are going to do. I say put the 10 to 15,000 in it to actually have that backup insurance. Now, I want to ask another question. Now, I'm slightly deviated there. Let's say that we went to having the city pay 100%. What does that mean? Does that mean that each year somebody's property taxes, everybody's property taxes in the entire city go up? According to the road work that you do?
You could do it a bunch of ways because you don't always do a project every year. You can do it one time. We need to increase your taxes by 20%, and we're going to now not have assessments. I mean, that could probably get us pretty dang close. With some little maintenance every now and then.
And do you know of any cases at all in life where they had a situation like we did, where people like Jennings Cover, whatever, just had an assessment, and also I guess the Halstead people.
There's quite a few in the city that have already been assessed.
Yes, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, you
Yeah.
can put a time frame into it.
Yeah.
But do we know of any cases? Because there'd have to be some sort of bridge to that. I mean, nobody would ever put up with that as far as low as retail sales. Nobody would ever put up with that. So there'd have to be some sort of payback to those people in order to get them over the bridge of moving into 100%.
The only way you could, I don't know, there might be different ways, but one way you could do it is when you redo a road. So, and this is, 30 years from now.
Nobody's going to wait for that.
30 years from now, if they've already been assessed once, then when you start redoing the roads, then you don't assess. But it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Okay, and there's no way that we can make this less expensive.
Not to my knowledge.
That's the right answer, but
I mean, we just keep seeing costs increase, unfortunately.
And that's yeah.
If I may, if you'd move to a benefit appraisal system, I mean, I don't know if you'd have to think about making it equitable to the other previously assessed people, because everybody would still be getting an assessment. But the previously assessed people, their taxes would go up just like everybody else, right? Because likely there's going to be a gap there that we'd have to make up in property taxes. Still, if we would go down the benefit appraisal process. So there's implications either way on levy.
I think that's here. So here's the other thought. Just a thought. The highest that we've assessed a bituminous road, bad bituminous to a good bituminous, was this past year on Stonebridge and Loring, and that was 9,600. And I think maybe that's why, I don't know why, maybe that's why staff was saying 10,000. We didn't get any pushback, or we didn't get any people that were appealing it. So maybe that's a good indicator.
I think you are too. I'm intensely confused. We cannot, as a council, if you're going to have a policy, you have to follow the policy. And we can't, as a council, magically decide that a certain amount of money is too much or not. Otherwise, the city, because the council doesn't have any money, the rest of the city residents are paying for that deficiency in those particular properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not okay either.
So
Because
then it gets back to what you want to do, and that's the report to determine what is the best amount to assess.
Yeah.
Where are we safe?
Hey.
Where will we not be appealed?
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
we won't be appealed if we switch to 100% levy funded and we stop assessing everybody.
right.
I mean, that's
right.
as we keep
That's
decreasing how much we charge per road and the cost keeps going up, that's
Right.
essentially where we're going.
That's
Right,
where we're going.
right.
Right.
So what's the change in the levy to switch to that?
Right.
Well, next year none, because we have to bond for the whole. See, that's the thing. Next year, for instance, we have to bond for the whole thing up front because we need the money up front. So the difference would be then the payback, maybe the following year, start. Right.
So we need to.
I need to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm with her. I need to know that. We need to know that because maybe that's the actual answer.
Well, but we were going to use those that prepaid their assessments to offset the bonding, the
Not the bonding, but the next year's projects
project, yeah.
or next year's things that we're doing, or payment on the bond.
Right.
So we would need a couple metrics to understand what this will cost, right? Because we have one bond sale that's happening next year that will have an impact on the levy, right? And if we bond or if we assess for that or not, that'll depend on what it is. So we can figure that out pretty dang easy. It's what are we going to do in the future, and how all of those costs would have to be incorporated into the levy.
Yes.
We just don't know exactly what we're going to do in the future either. We can have like some number and say, yep, we're going to invest $1 million a year into roads, and that's what we're going to do. So we can figure out the 2023 projects really easily. It's just the unknown of what the levy impact is for future
Assume
projects.
that we no longer assess anything and get numbers of what that's going to cost.
Yeah, I'm with her that we need to see those numbers because long term, this is becoming increasingly unfair
Yes,
across the board,
rapidly.
and it's only going to get worse.
I mean, take Kings Point Road. They had the option of fixing the end of their road when Woodland Cove went in, correct? They chose not to. This would not have cost them $28,000 in 2014. They chose not to do it. They made that decision, and now the city and the other residents in Woodland Cove, they want us now to pay for that.
But that's a decision the council could make. We could say, no, you've decided. Same with Kristen. We could say, no, you decided back in 2010? What was
Oh,
it?
that was
2011?
17, 18. Kristen was
2018,
relatively.
2019.
Yeah.
When Woodland, when Kings Point Road
Oh,
was
Kings
done?
Point.
No. Kings Point Road was done way
13
before
and
that.
14.
I thought you were
You should, I
No,
think you
no.
said Kristen. Yeah.
No, Kristen was,
The Oxyoke project.
then,
2019 ultimately.
yeah. So Kristen was 2019, and we told them, we said, okay, you're off the list, but don't come to us again in 20 years because it's not going to happen. So I don't know, I think Woodland Cove was done in or Kings Point Road was done in 2011 or 2012.
13, 14, 2013, I think. Yeah.
So
It's 12.
2012.
Well,
So we're talking 10 years ago. So we could say to them, well, we're going to have to put you on the list, but you're going to be 10 years down the road. We could do that. I mean, we're not obligated to do their road if we don't want to.
I'm just saying, it's the same argument over. Well, now it's more expensive and we're charging more, but they don't want to pay this. Okay, so then stop assessing anyone, change the levy, and we don't have to keep having this discussion every year when certain roads cost more than other roads. The discussion's done then.
It's one option. What are you going to...
That's the only fair way to do it, because if you're going to keep coming back every year and go, oh, well, last year 7,500 was okay, but this year 12 grand is too much or 15 grand is too much, the roads aren't getting cheaper. We're going to have more discussions of this is too much, this is too much.
Yeah.
Unless you change state statute.
No, this is a good discussion. I mean, special assessments are challenging, right? And this varies so much between communities. If you go with a no assessment policy, you spread it out. One of the important pieces that I think we're working on is a plan for every street in town. Because if I was a taxpayer in your community, and now I'm paying, my taxes went up X amount because of these roads, I want to know when my road's going to get done and that it's going to get done, right? So that's a piece that you're already working on if you're kind of going down that path. But I'm telling you, it'll be a very, very significant, just in my mind, just the impact in the 2023 projects, probably $350,000, and that's 6-7% levy. And then any other subsequent project we do after that, figure it'll probably be 5% a year, probably 3% on years that we don't do a major project, at least 5% on every year. And then maintenance on that with project costs increase. So you just add.
We don't assess for maintenance anyway.
Well, I'm talking about levy maintenance, adding money to that percentage because of just the construction costs going up. I mean, you're probably looking at on average a 5% a year tack on, just for the foreseeable future until we get caught up. So,
I mean, I'm not advocating no assessment. Don't get me wrong. I understand what you're saying. It would be easier. Be far easier not to do any assessments, but I'm not advocating no assessments. I'm just concerned that,
Well, wait a second. Why aren't you advocating no assessment?
well, one, I think it would be a hard sell to those people that have already paid assessments.
Well, then there's got. But again, you can. That's a finance issue. So you can go back and do finance steps to figure out what it is you would do to take away the pain.
I'm not sure you can.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
I mean, I'm not sure, but we could.
Has anyone looked at recently these benefit appraisals and how accurate and fair they seem like they're coming in? To me, if these appraisals are coming in at fair market value and it's 12,000 or 13 or 15, I just don't want these appraisers undershooting. Then it's just wasting time and money. If they're that should be a $15,000 assessment. They're saying 8 because they're afraid that they're going to lose an appeal.
Right.
I mean, if they're coming in fair and accurate, to me, that's maybe the place to transition to. Is it's an appraisal, it's an independent third party. Hopefully they're doing their job correctly and accurately. We'd have something to rely on, and maybe that's the happy medium for everybody.
I agree with what you're saying, but you just brought up another whole point. We don't know how they're going to come in. And I
Jasper,
understand
you
think
made
about that.
you made the statement that you thought, or do you know that?
I went through this transition in LeSueur, and they had a policy similar to yours, and we ended up not doing a project for like 12 years. So we had that.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, so we had that going on for us, that we didn't have all these recent assessments that were hanging over there. So, but it went from a 25% average assessment project cost to like 12. So, and for a single family home, urbanized area, it was like 7,500.
And that was quite a few years ago. And that was in a different community. So
Different community. It was, so the project they're doing this year right now is 7,500.
So they haven't changed
But if
it.
it's densely
Yeah.
populated, it's more like some of the ones we've
Right.
done for 7,500.
Right,
But
and
if
we've done
appraiser
those,
comes in
right.
and looks at Morning View, it might be 13, 14, 15,000.
It might be, yeah.
See, I don't. I think I've sort of changed.
I've been watching the
Talk yourself into it.
Brian doesn't change his mind very often.
So
Is there
I like
any-
the appraisal.
Is there another city that is similar to ours that has
That's-
done the
yeah.
special benefits?
That's asked
That's what I guess. So
Allison.
sort of getting at.
I'm not aware of any. I believe City Attorney Ron Beatty had mentioned, and I don't know how many years ago it was. Minnetonka went to zero assessments.
No, the
Right,
report.
appraisals,
The
yeah.
doing
The appraisal.
Yeah.
Right.
As far as
Do you know any cities? that use them?
Hastings does.
I know Chanhassen did when I was there.
I mean, or just City of Dayton. They're sort of on the north end of the cities, but they would have streets probably similar to us, or I'm just trying to Lake Elmo or somebody like that, where they had benefit appraisals on similar type of street
Correct.
projects.
I think the challenge in looking at other communities and what they use for special benefit analysis, one is if they've made it part of the public record, and two is now you're relying on staff to make the comparison that the demographics and the project the project would be simple, right? A street reconstruction project in Minnetrista is the same as a street reconstruction project in Dayton. But I think the challenge is now you're putting the onus on staff who doesn't have the qualifications to say that this neighborhood in Dayton is the same as in Minnetrista.
Right.
That's why you need the professionals to do that.
So I was just wondering if any community has done it, do they feel that the information they got back was fairly done?
Well, I can speak from my experience, my professional experience. I felt that it was in line with what we were seeing. And we did, I mean, this was back in the early 2000s when we would get multiple, for a project every 3 or 4 years. And they seemed to be consistently going up in range of value based on what we were seeing for project costs. So my experience has been yes. I don't know if there's other experiences that others have had that would differ from my opinion.
I'll say once you go down the path of benefit appraisal, you're pretty much locked into it.
Right.
Because if
Right.
you go above it, you're kind of giving the person you're assessing maybe the ammo to appeal if you go, potentially, right? Unless there's some other justification. There is input from staff that occurs when you're working with the benefit appraiser. They look at what previous assessments were, and they try to find that sweet spot for you. But yeah, once you make the commitment to go down the path, you're committed. It's really hard to deviate. But
Unless, could we make a commitment where after something like this instance, you have at some point we want to bring that company in to do the appraisal. It wouldn't be for all of projects, it's just at some point.
So you just want to pick and choose which projects?
Well,
you do
say
this on?
anything over 15, like our cap, let's say we have a cap of 15,000, or whatever we decide, but at that point, then we bring in somebody. Like $24,000 is a lot.
Right,
But I still don't think that the people that aren't driving that road should be, we already are paying 50%.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
That we're sponsoring this road that most people, all but 84 people, are not going to be driving.
But if you go down that road, as you said,
I've lived here for 14 years
Except-
and I have never
That-
driven down
Well,
no, I mean,
but-
I
keep in
meant
mind,
if we elect to go with the special appraisal,
I think you have to
if
take
we
it
don't
out
like
of
the results, we're still kind of locked into it because we went down that legal
Right.
path, if you want to call it a legal path. So,
you can choose to keep it private data too. You can have it issued by the attorney's office, and then it's not public.
oh,
So you can do that, and you can evaluate it in you couldn't evaluate it in a closed session, but it could be not private information or not public
Not
information.
public.
So you could do it that way if you wanted. Generally, it's
But okay, here's the only thing. So now we don't disclose it so people know that.
This is being recorded.
Yeah. I mean, it's generally these are public information
yeah.
because if you're going down a transparent process, you just kind of buy into that and say it is what it is. The one thing you will see, I'll just mention it, is that lots that are splittable. So if you have a large lot that you could subdivide per our zoning code, you will receive so let's say it's 12,000 per unit, and there's 4 units possible. You get 12 times 4,
Right.
So you get a $48,000
Right.
assessment because you could subdivide and build 4 houses on your property.
Right.
So you'll see that, and that's a little touchy with some people that are like, "Well, I've lived here my whole life. I'm never going to subdivide." But
Yeah.
and you can make a judgment call on that situation.
And that happens more so out in, like Game Farm and Halstead and those kind of roads or even possibly North Farm versus I don't know that there's any subdividable lots on Morningview or Morningside or I don't know.
And something like the golf course will
Right.
have an enormous assessment with
Right.
this.
I know.
With a benefit appraisal.
Yeah.
So we've reached a point where we can no longer pave our roads because it's just so expensive.
Because, well, they're
I'm not even being
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're
Yeah.
coming down to.
Right.
We're coming down to the whole thing is just too expensive.
Right. So again, I'm not advocating no assessments. Although you're right, that would be the simplest. And I'm not advocating, but all I'm advocating for is to make sure that we're not over assessing so that we don't get caught. That's the only thing. And I do think my opinion is the $25,000 assessment for the Morningview Westwood project is just too much. And the reason I say that is when I look at, you just said it, that these reports or these appraisers, they look at projects that you've done. When I look at Loring, I look at Stonebridge, I look at Jennings Cove area, and I look at Minneapolis Avenue, and when none of those are even halfway there, I say it's not going to fly. That's why I look at it that way.
And what happens because you have to have a public meeting, right? So what
Right.
happens when all of those people from Morningview are going to get this assessment of $25,000? When they show up and they say, we don't want to do it, what happens?
Well, I think, kind of to your point, we say we either do it or we do, or we put them on the 30 down the list. But I don't think we can start going down that road because then 10 years from now they come back and they say, well, we want you to do our road, and now it's more expensive. Plus, we put in all this money up until this point in engineering costs and feasibility reports and bonding and all of that. Do we start saying to people when we've identified a road and they say, well, we don't want it done? I think quite honestly, we should have stood firm on Kristen Lane, but I think we need to stand firm. These are the roads we're doing, and this is what it's going to cost, but I think we have to have a good, accessible amount. I don't think anybody's going
We're
to...
back to a good, accessible amount.
A fair, accessible amount.
Whether it's
Yeah.
fair or good,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it goes back to whatever amount is not paid has to be paid by the rest of the
Correct.
residents anyway.
Correct.
So then it's technically not fair to those other residents.
You have to look at it in terms of, I look at it, we're a community. You say you never drive on that road, but eventually we're going to do Deer Creek. You say you never drive on the road, but eventually we're going to do your road, or we're doing your road. So eventually, if we keep to this plan, everybody's going to get their road redone.
So then everybody everybody in the community is going to have to break up the bills for all these roads, and that's how it's going to have to be done. Otherwise, that's really technically the only fair way.
Well, whatever.
I don't. We need some kind of a transition to move in that direction.
I think the benefit appraisal is a good transition process.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
kind of go
where I'm
down the
getting
path with you on
Yeah,
that too.
I think so, because if it's
It's at least It's weaning, potentially if the city gets to 20 years from now to not have to assess or 30, it sort of weans you off assessments, I guess, or you're still getting 30% or 33 versus 50 or
Right.
something.
Right.
I don't know.
So if you use this, you just sent us the sewer one. So I guess I was under the misconception that you could come up with a standard cost, 10,000 or whatever, across the board for everybody. But the recommendation is by physical address.
It is. So I did share that with everybody, but they group a lot of the single family homes. What you see, I think you're probably looking at the first page or first pages.
Yep.
Those are the special ones that needed special consideration. So they're the ones that could be split, or they're a commercial property or an industrial property.
Oh.
Those are all looked at individually to establish the benefit. That's how they do it. That's how they do it at this Brumman Associates. But if it's a standard, what you consider standard single family home for the neighborhood, those are all grouped together, and those are the 75 to 8,500 in that case in this document. So one thing I will note that underneath the benefit appraisal process, you're basically eliminating your water assessment too. So your 100, we didn't talk about that yet. The 100% water assessment, that's all built into the benefit. So the jury's out on the water. As far as the benefit that you have every right to assess that 100% if you choose that. It's cost prohibitive, right? I think it'll be 80 years, 100 years before we would pay for it ourselves to make that money back. But we're in the business. We're going to be in this business forever, so we have a larger time frame that we're looking at ROIs, right? So, but the benefit appraisal process would eliminate your water assessment. So that'd all be under one benefit for the property. Just that's the recommendation that I would go with, is to include that all under one umbrella. So it's all.
But there's some properties that don't have water.
Yep, and that's taken into consideration with the benefit appraisal.
Okay.
So like the Morning View area that's receiving new water main, that would be under consideration. But if it's just a straight up road surface,
But we've never We've never assessed for for water.
well, it appeared. So I have a summary sheet. I think Brian actually prepared that has like Maple Crest in 2008 was streets and water line, and that was for $19,650. They were included under one.
Yeah, because they asked to have the water brought in.
Yep. And then the Kings Point Road was various. So it doesn't happen very often, but the recommendation would be just to have that all under one benefit appraisal process. So then you don't have another water assessment. It's all just, here's your assessment for the whole project. Based on the project cost, you break up that assessment and put it in the right pot when you're doing the payments to the levy. Yeah, percentage-wise. So just to keep that in mind, we haven't touched base on it. I know we're running out of time here. We can continue the discussion if we would like. It seems like there's
a little difference between the Morningside and the Maple, because Morningside has water there.
Yep.
It's improving the water, so that's a little different scenario. So, all right.
Do we have to change the assessment policy if we decide to do a special benefit appraisal?
No.
Okay, so let's do that for the bond projects, see how it goes, and then go from there. How does that sound?
I don't think we have any other choice.
Right, but that ends the discussion.
Right,
for
and I
time
think
being,
we just keep the
and we can
water
see
out
how
of
it
it
turns
for
out.
now, because we're not assessing for the water anyway.
okay. So for like the Morning View,
Yeah.
the water is we're just doing it on our own debt, 100%.
Well, we were
I
anyway.
think you have to, because it's existing water main, and so my understanding is that with the enterprise fund, would be used to do that, because they've essentially been paying into that replacement fund through their water
Correct.
user fees.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the direction is what we'll do is we'll get a quote from try to get a couple, likely Brumman Associates, the one I sent you. They're the most responsive and I think the best out there.
Okay.
It's kind of a short time period, but we'll come back with a proposal to get that authorized at council. Hopefully I'm wrong and it's less than 10 to 15,000, but we'll see. But there's a lot of projects here, so we'll look at it for the Morning View project and then the North Arm project. So those two specific projects. I think that's how many properties is that, Allison? Is that like around 120 or 110?
Morning View is, I believe, 84, and North Arm was 40 some.
Okay.
43, it says on the back.
43. So about 125-ish. So that's how they base it on the cost is the amount of. So it might be actually less, right around 10. So
Okay.
don't quote me on that.
Those
But
are the only two accessible projects for bond bid.
That's correct.
correct, yeah. So those two projects.
Trails in, but that would include, that's also accessible. Trails in.
For which?
Trails
Trails.
End.
Correct. That we lumped that into
That's
the North Arm
included,
area
right.
because
Okay.
they were full depth removal and replacement.
Yep.
Okay.
So just A and C.
All
Okay.
right.
So we'll get a quote back for that and bring that back probably on the 18th of July.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to move the item number 4 and 5, the Midco addition options and the budget levy considerations. We're going to move that to the end of our business items. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We are adjourned for our work session, and we will be starting our regular meeting in 9 minutes.
The other one.